Hello everyone, we are here and I think I made some people angry.
You're pretty good at that.
What? What? Why would you say that?
Which story are we on again?
We're on Your Hero Academia.
Okay.
Last chapter was the chapter that you've been pushing me to release for quite some time.
That's right.
Yeah, and we got some people's thoughts on the matter.
Oh, Joe Clone
We only
is
have
not
we
happy.
only have a couple. We only had a couple of reviews, but both of them are very long. So
Okay, Joe Clone is not a happy camper. All right, you evil turncoat.
wait, how am I a turncoat?
I don't know.
I'm gonna need some elaboration on that one, man.
Is he talking to Akarui? Or is he talking to you? Or is he talking to Akarui via you?
Maybe.
All right, forget that Eri and Mirko competing is really fun. Forget that Kaminari and Tokoyami getting a bro talk. Forget that Mina and the girls got closer. Forget that you brought Shirakumo back.
Wrong fanfiction.
Sorry. Forget that's my husbando, so I saw the SHI and that's what my brain went to.
It's hilarious.
Forget that Kai with a dark saber is totally awesome.
That was
Forget
fun.
that Eri going through trauma fueled ape shit on the doctor. Oh goodness, we got him upset enough to cuss a little bit. That's pretty big for him.
Oh boy.
Forget that Shadow just spoiled Dobby's identity after killing twice. Forget that we get to see Team Juniper again. Forget that Hatsume had an explosion to her whole body.
Yeah.
Forget that you brought All Might back. You turned Akarui evil. He is Umbra. How? Why? When? What?
I don't know that it's accurate to say that he turned evil. I mean, I don't know. I think he's had. I think that's been in. I think the potential for that's been in him all along. I'm just saying.
No comment yet. Thank you, Joe Clone.
Thank you for your review.
Silly Kita, sir. Mataris, sir. Sir, after all of this, I have but one thing to say. Get the Rubik's Cube. Get the Rubik's Cube. Get the Rubik's Cube and aim for his hands this time. They cannot be allowed to damage any more fields like he just did. That should be illegal.
Oh, not that. Come on. Why my hands?
Sir, how could you?
Easily.
Despite having but one thing to say, Silly Kita then went on to write a damn near essay about this chapter. Oh, buddy. I feel you. You guys just need to understand my pain that I've been holding in for all of this time.
Imagine my pain. I've been holding this in for more than twice as long as you.
You're a masochist. All right.
I'm a sadist.
I want to say that I should have known something was up just from that opening scene. I really want to say that I did, but I cannot. It was definitely surprising to see this entity show something like remorse, but seeing as he himself had claimed that he was not a traditional villain in a sense, I just figured that this was a manifestation of that side of him. I also thought that he was speaking to Mataris or Shadow, which would have confirmed my theory about the two of them working together, although for longer than I had originally thought. It made sense. The calm before the storm sections were all handled superbly, and that's saying something considering all of the different character groupings and dynamics going on at the same time.
That was difficult to balance because I had like 5 different points of view happening.
Yeah. Kudai and Mina's interaction felt the most awkward, interestingly enough, though not in a bad way. I can't even imagine how hard it has to be getting ready to go into battle alongside the person you love more than anything in the whole world. I know it's probably worse than when only one goes into battle while the other can only watch and pray that things turn out okay, but that doesn't make this kind of interaction and setup any less intense for when it happens. It's like they're trying to reassure each other and they're doing all of the right things to do so, but that's somehow almost making the tension even worse.
Yeah, I can kind of get that.
I really loved the interaction between the 3 One For All wielders. It seems like Eri was just about to undo all of the confidence she's spent in the last few months building up alongside her heroes. But Big Bros Kudai and Izuku were there to give her the pep talk she needed to help her remember just how awesome she actually is. This isn't to say that it felt like she would come undone without either of them at her side. at any given point. But being made to face against Shigaraki again after their last encounter in her future would rattle anybody. I know that logistics-wise, it made sense, given that he can't steal her quirk and she can rewind anybody that he tries to decay, but it also seems like a cruel joke of fate to have their matchups be as such.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah. Like I'm trying to emotional damage. I'm trying to go for the maximum amount of that, essentially.
But at the same time, it's like you want to have that poetic justice
Yeah.
coming full circle. It's like you have this unresolved thing that needs to get resolved, right?
Yeah.
And
Like
so,
out of any of them, she deserves the chance to go after him the most.
Yeah. That being said, once she kicks it into gear, man, does she kick. Her dynamic with Mirko was as unexpected as it was funny. I know the rabbit hero is pretty competitive, but it feels like Corona being another female powerhouse.
Cronoa.
Sorry.
We don't need Corona in here.
Who back up. Now I lost it. Other female powerhouse who back up her talk. Mirko might have felt a little threatened in terms of her place on the pecking order, especially once she saw Aries start fighting. Man, this is this second chapter in an arc. We have two girls vying for the boss bitch title. You on some kind of girl power kick?
Not particularly. I'm like this was the team up that made sense to me, and they're both cool characters.
Yep.
I'm like I'm not No, I'm not on a girl power kick. I'm just on a superhero power kick.
Joking aside, I can definitely see Mirko taking Cronoa as a sidekick. Sorry, you're always the one who reads it. I never have to read it.
Do you want me to take over
yes.
at this point? Okay. All right. Joking aside, I can definitely see Mirko taking Cronoa on as a sidekick once everything blows over. It would probably be good for the both of them. Mirko with becoming a better example to the younger generation, and Arian maintaining her confidence when needed. If that does happen, I petition for Ari to start wearing her natural hair color again. They'd look really cool together like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that being a cool look. And son of a bitch, you played us. You played all of us. I knew we were going to get played when Akuduri claimed to have found Umbra, and I was expecting a Hail Mary to come from the end zone, but not in the form of a freaking cannonball. Set up Team Juniper for getting killed and or brutalized. That I could have handled. That's what I was getting ready for. And when I went back to read everything with a better understanding of the context, I could see you laughing behind your keyboard the entire damn time. Sir, who gave you the right? I gave me the right, and yeah, I was laughing behind my keyboard a good portion of the time. Let's see. Oh, right. Anyone who reads this of their own volition did. I'll still complain about it, but I know I did it to myself with this. Oh wait, that's right. I still have reasons to be upset. That farewell scene with Mina and Aki. Now that I know that's the last time they'll probably see each other like that. I'm crying. I'm actually crying, damn it. Why did I come to love these two so much?
No.
Because I wrote it that way.
I'm crying, buddy. I cried too. It's okay.
Let's see. Oh yeah, the other girls all being supportive of each other in their own ways was also kind of sweet to watch. I'm still upset about the other thing, but I am making an effort not to have my review be all about that, even though my every instinct wants me to keep shouting about it. Instead, I'll briefly shout about something else. Our boy Shirakumo is in the house. This does raise the question regarding how certain parts of the final battle will unfold, but I'll worry about that later. For right now, I'll say it was so freaking good to see not only that Eraserhead and Present Mike have their boy Loud Cloud back with them, but having him be the one to capture Garaki. Even if it was a twice double, that had to have felt good for the trio to pull off. Yeah, that was dream come true for a few of them. Yeah, and I'm assuming that concerning the final battle, I'm assuming that he'll be referencing. I'm assuming that he's referencing the fact that the villains won't be able to use Kurogiri's warp power because that doesn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. So that's gonna have to change the way that things work up. Yeah. And Monama's not gonna be able to copy that either. So that's gonna change things up.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
I have a plan for that. I do have a plan for that.
I can't wait to see how you do that.
I do have a plan for that. I think people are gonna like. I'm pretty confident people are gonna like what I do with this.
Good.
Let's see. Goes on to say, I bet you thought you were really clever, having Todoroki start to figure something out when those citizens started evacuating in time for the heroes to take to the streets, didn't you? I mean, yeah, you do happen to be very clever, but I'm still upset. How long does it take for one to stop being upset at this particular development?
Took me about 1.5 years, buddy.
Cool, so I'm going to be getting hate mail about this for the next 1.5 years is what I'm hearing. Jeez. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like, I felt like there had to be somebody among the heroes who's going to think, this is weird. This is weird that everybody knew to evacuate before we even got here and we didn't say anything. It's like, you know, a lot of them, it's like they're getting caught up in the rush of the battle. Like, you know.
And my initial thought was like, Akurui, but then I was like, no, like he would have told them about his plan.
He didn't have solar intelligence either.
I was like, I was like that, like for a split second I thought Akurui, and then I was like, no, there's no way.
But then it kind of was. But yeah, if I had just glazed over that entirely from the hero's initial encounter, I feel like that would have been kind of incredulous. Like they're like not like I didn't have like the entire group discussing it.
Yeah, but there were a couple people who were like,
they're like something about this ain't right.
There ain't time to talk about it, but yeah, this is weird.
Yeah, and like he doesn't even have time to really think about it. Like as soon as he gets into the fight, you know, he puts that thought in the back of his head. But yeah, someone had to think something about it. Let's see. Kaminari getting some real nice character development in here. I loved it. It was honestly really cool to see Tokoyami helping his friend realize that Kurai really isn't all that different from him in terms of motivations for his actions. More or less putting the idea in Charge Bolt's head that even if he doesn't have as good or powerful a quirk as Kai, that's no reason for him to be any less of a hero in terms of their capabilities. In terms of quirks, this pair is horribly incompatible, but I think we're going to see some incredible things from these two, both in this battle and going forward in general. You are not wrong. I've got something that I'm so looking forward to. I think it's not in this chapter that I'm about to record, but the next chapter. There's going to be something with Kaminari and Tokoyami where I'm just like, yes, this is what I've been building toward for them. Let's see. Side note, you built up the moment of Umbra's reveal so damn well it almost makes me sick. Kind of like when you enjoy 2 or 3 too many slices of your favorite pie. Can't relate. I don't like pie.
Weirdo.
It's so good, but then it comes around to kick your ass with all kinds of vindictiveness. What I mean by that is that in this case, that every time you had an opportunity to remind us that the hunt for Umbra was on, you made spectacular use of it. You integrated the progression of Team Juniper's hunt in the rising tension so much so that it became synonymous with the build-up to the ensuing violence, and the ramifications are far scarier than the outcome of a standard battle between the heroes and villains, even one as massive as this. I think I talked about this in the last podcast where originally it was supposed to be cut up into like maybe like it was originally going to be like one scene where they're like coming out, or maybe 2, but I was like, nah, I gotta cut this up more, otherwise the anticipation just isn't going to build up the way that it's supposed to.
I liked that you did it in tandem for sure.
Okay, yeah, all right, cool. I'm getting better at like narrative choices. Like I think I've come a long way with like the way that conversations flow and the way that I do descriptions while keeping things moving. I think I've gotten a lot better about that. I think what I'm struggling with in more recent years is figuring out how to do cutaways.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure that out. I think like I was watching the creator's commentary on Dragon Ball Z Abridged where and I had never I never noticed this before, how whenever there's like a fight scene that would be like in the anime was especially long, right? And they want to cut through stuff, but also imply that time is moving on, is they would do a cutaway to another character who's doing something silly or what have you. And then you can cut back and you can just infer like, oh, stuff's been happening for a while, but you don't have to actually see it the whole time. Yeah. So like that whole kind of cut back and forth is where I think I'm starting to figure the timing out for this kind of thing, which has been very helpful. Let's see. Silakira goes on to say, as for when Cronoa actually made it down to Garaki's lab, well, it's very clear who she got her battle temperament from, and it definitely wasn't Deku or Kai. Careful, Ari, your Bakugo is showing.
Yep.
Yeah, I enjoy that. I enjoy like, and again, I talked about this last podcast where it's like I love getting to use Ari because people have this preconceived idea of like the
Mousy,
sweet little girl. But then, like, stuff like this reminds you, oh, she's a nice girl until she's not. And then she's like Bakugo's niece kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is my dog begging for something?
She's giving me very impatient looks, like she needs to go outside.
No.
Outside.
Do not.
I'm getting very intense stares here.
Do not need to go outside. All right, I lost the argument. The dog's got to go out. Anyway, let's see. Silikura goes on to say, if Kaminari of all people is calling something out as dumb, you got to know it's pretty stupid. The silliness of the facts is probably what left me fairly unguarded for one of the coldest things that I've seen done in this series, with him taking the enemy commander's attack and turning it right back on the villains. No, not only that, he dropped 200 people with one shot, no casualties. There were definitely the 200 people all died. Unless he's talking about no casualties on the hero's side from that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because that would make sense. Yeah, normally with an attack that large, you'd probably expect there to be some collateral. I think it would have been better to say no collateral damage.
That makes sense.
Let's see. If he, of all their classmates, has got that kind of precision with these new suits, I think most of my morbid curiosity is now being directed to wonder just what in the hell Tekoyami's suit is going to let him do with Dark Shadow. Fun things are going to happen with Dark Shadow. Continuing on the cold-blooded thought trail, holy crap does Kai get things done. And he didn't even hesitate to get it going. Just straight up wasted whichever schmuck decided to take a pot shot thinking it was a good idea. I mean, I don't know why he did it, but I feel like Bakugo could have just as easily got the ball rolling when it comes to their squad's kill count. Then again, it probably wouldn't have had the same emotional impact on his classmates as it was seeing Kai get right down to business. Yeah, if Kurai hadn't killed somebody first, it would have been Bakugo. It would have been Bakugo or Todoroki. One of those two. They would have gotten the ball rolling. But yeah, narrative wise, it made most sense to me for Kurai to get things going. Because him and Deku have killed people. So has Team Ruby. Sorry, him and Deku killed a person. Team Ruby also killed the Chimera villain, but they've kind of peeled off at this point. So they're off doing something else. So of the people that I had available at the time, it made the most sense that Kurai would be the one kind of like not wrestling with himself, but reminding himself that this is what he had to do and then going for it.
Yeah.
Let's see. And at the head of the Cold Bloods today, we have, you guessed it, the Red Swordsman himself coming out of who knows where to not even give Twice a chance to cause more problems. It was interesting, I think, how it actually seemed like he was there to help Hawks, as opposed to just taking care of a particular villain. Yeah. If his little spiel about hesitations are anything to go by, and going off of what I know of him from your other versions of him, it seems like this was Mataru's possibly trying to help Hawks see that he was just shy of making a very costly mistake because of sentiment. I know in the original that Hawks does go on to kill Twice when he had to, but this version of Mataru's probably sensed how much that would have hurt him to do so, and so either out of pity, or more likely, out of a desire to see things move along with fewer risks, just decides to take care of business. Hawks has helped out either way, but I thought it worth noting how Mataru's didn't just roll in and kill Twice without even revealing himself. He stuck around to show Hawks the risks of the fire he was playing with. I don't know that it's accurate to say that he was doing it for altruistic purposes. He's telling Hawks that he's dumb.
I feel like this version of Mataris is not as cold-blooded, though, because he definitely has more... I mean, it depends on what point in time we're talking about Mataris, too, and all the different versions, because he has a lot of changes in his way that he carries himself. But in this one, it seems like a young Mataris who... He's lost a lot, and This is
actually the
jaded.
Oldest version of Mataris that I've written.
Really?
He's 19.
He's definitely lost a lot. He's definitely jaded, and he definitely has the whole loner shtick. But he definitely feels a lot more compassion than other Mataris iterations that I've
I suppose that's true.
In my
I suppose
opinion.
that's true to a point. But he wasn't doing it for altruistic purposes. He's looking at Hawks like, why didn't you take care of this already? And like at the same time though, he's like, I know why you didn't take care of it, but you should have taken care of it. It's like you're being stupid. You're hesitating. And he's like, yeah, going undercover for a long time, that's very risky. So, he's like, I'm the objective voice of reason here, so I'm going to take care of stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see. Speaking of playing with fire, I don't know that taunting Dabi / Toya was the best move on his part. Boy is pissed! Yes, he is. Now, I have to give credit where it's due. Kai drinking the Red Bull was pretty funny. Get it? Red Bull? And was equally effective in providing a convincing reason for why he would get separated from everyone so quickly. Of course, this was followed by a roller coaster of emotions that took me every which way so fast it's amazing I'm not going to the hospital for whiplash. I was in the hospital earlier this week. Wasn't fun. I'll see if I can't break down some of my thought processes from this scene. Hey, cool, a sniper took out the villain leading him away. Oh shit, a sniper took out the villain leading him away? Lady Nagant? Wait, she's not gonna kill him? I thought Umber wanted to... Oh damn, quoting Vader while showing off a Darksaber? This guy knows how to flex. Wait a moment. Hold the freaking phone, is that... It's All Might! All Might is back, everything will be okay because he is here! And then everything was not okay.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Oh man, yeah, like I knew that this was gonna be whiplash enough with the Akadori reveal, but I was honestly sitting there for a few weeks thinking, how do I make this an even crazier shift?
Why are you the way that you are?
I don't know. I genuinely don't. It's fun being this way. Let's see. You did something to scare Mei Hatsume, a woman who wouldn't know what fear was even if she managed to invent it herself. You showed us character development on her behalf so marked that she actually cares enough about somebody to leave her lab, run across the campus and help them, and possibly even run into a villain if she has to. Also, she can maybe warn this person that someone is coming for them. Then you set it up so that Team Juniper might have even the tiniest chance of catching Umber off guard. Just enough for us to have hope that we might actually get one over on this villain who's been coming after the Hikari boys when they really don't need that kind of crap. Then, you blew up Aki's room. You killed my favorite character and possibly took out Hatsume in the process. How dare you, sir?
Yeah, I was definitely crying my eyes out at this point.
That's right, because you actually thought I killed Akadori there for a second.
I did.
I was like, oh no, this is going to be way worse. And then, you showed us that Akadori Hogosha did not, in fact, die in a dorm bombing, which should have been a good thing. Should have been. And yet, somehow, you made that the worst possible outcome. AI Aki fracking Umbra? How did I not see that coming? Of course the only one smart enough to match Akadori is Akadori. Excuse me, sir, while I go slam my head into a desk so many times. I'm so mad that I like this so much. Why are you this way? And then there's a lot of scribbling.
Yeah, like, honestly, I was so angry. I legitimately, like, I told you guys, I love my husband. I am not an abusive wife.
She's not.
I do not throw things at him. I do not hit him. Most definitely threw that Rubik's Cube at his head. I was so angry.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I could not listen to this story.
You, like, didn't talk to me for, like, a day.
I didn't. And I don't do that. Like,
no.
I don't get mad like that.
You're so codependent.
I was so... You know what? But I was so upset. Like, I could not talk about this story for ages. And then whenever we recorded the podcast, I would just get so angry. And it drove me crazy not telling you guys. And you finally get to feel my pain. I'm sorry.
I'm not. That was awesome.
But I mean, for me, it's also like, okay, it's pretty brilliant though, because you know, first of all, I'm your biggest fan, but second of all, it's like, okay, if you are really, really smart and you can only think of one solution, but that solution means bending the rules, and you don't want to, but you have the option of setting this course of action into motion on the stipulation that you can find a better plan and stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it makes sense for him. Like, I don't think an older, wiser person would have done it. He's smart, not
he's
wise.
13 years old.
Yeah, he's smart, not wise.
Yes.
This is.
He invested all of his points into his intelligence stat, not his wisdom.
But, that being said, I mean, for his character, it makes sense, because what better solution than if you have this choice and you can't see a better option, set one option into motion and do everything you can to find alternatives.
To try and go the other way.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that later on in the story.
Yeah. And so, but I mean, I think it makes sense. I was just so angry. I couldn't even,
see, you now understand the context under which he did this.
Yeah.
But these guys don't yet.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Have to take that out.
No, it's fine. We didn't get into the total nitty-gritty of it,
okay.
so.
Yeah.
Who is this? Basically, Akadori saw that he had a couple of options. He tried to explore the most likely ones, and this was the one that won out in the end. It's not like he went straight for this plan.
Yeah, he didn't want to do this.
Yeah, no, he didn't want to do this.
He's not considered a murderer. He's not someone who likes
Well, he is a murderer,
people.
actually.
Now he is.
Now he is, yeah.
But I mean, when he came up with the plan, that was not his goal.
No.
He didn't want that.
He didn't want this.
But it's the only way he could see things working out.
Yep. Yeah, is
this selfish? Yes, because he wants it to work out for his brother, and hero kind, but mostly his brother.
I'd say there's some selfish motivations in there, but I would say there's also a pretty good portion of no, this is just what needs to happen.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, he wants the highest survival rate of human beings who are innocent. So
yeah,
doesn't make what he did okay. It's still pretty messed up.
Yep.
He's playing God a little bit, and I don't like it.
A little bit.
But I mean, again,
for me,
it's just
one of the things I wanted to drive toward this so hard was that I feel like this is a byproduct of the way that shows and books even are released now, is that you get everything all at once. You don't get to sit and stew on certain emotions and the way that something makes you feel for a while.
And we have such a short attention span that we forget about it. We get over, I know people who, watched Naruto a long time ago, and then they stopped watching it, and then they're, over it. They don't really care about finding out.
I blame the filler for that.
Yeah, but, you know what I mean. It's you start a book series, and back in the day,
you would wait a year or two for the next one to come out.
So excited when you found out 3 years later that the next book's
coming. It's what happened next?
Yeah,
it's
but
I want to know.
It's we have this short attention span of watching these little 15-second videos all day long, and that's all our brains can focus on, because we've literally been rewiring our brains. And I think sitting down with something and chewing on it, and then being able to stick with it. That's why I'm so impressed with these readers, honestly, that they've really been sticking with it, and they give such awesome feedback.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for me, that's hard. And, I live with you, so it makes it easier.
Yeah.
But I think that,
And more difficult in some ways.
But with how life is so hard and so exhausting and so busy, just sitting down and reading is so hard, honestly, anymore. Yeah. And so I think that that's the special thing about literature, and I'm thankful that there's still humans out there who appreciate this form of art, Yeah.
Well, we'll go ahead and get more into the discussion stuff after the audio chapter is done playing, and we'll get into the behind the scenes for this whole thing, because this is another, now that Akadori being Umbra is out in the open, they're things are gonna keep things have picked up, and they're gonna keep going. They're gonna keep going at about this pace for a while.
Yeah.
So we'll be back in a little bit.
What was in my past brought me to the end. I was stuck in limbo, what's up, you did wrong? No, they took everything, everything from me. Nothing left to see, burn it down slowly. Can't bury the truth, the past is far from dead. The chances we lose when we chose never to forget. When choices made, I thoughts of blame. The taste of blood was the beginning of the end. Beginning of the end.
Burdens of war. You're sure he's the real Garaki? Yes, sir, Cronoa said with a smile that resembled her teacher's to an almost unnerving degree. I used the surefire method for testing twice his clones a couple of times, just to be certain. Crust Squad is hauling him off right now. His Nomu have been neutralized and turned back into humans, including the high end. Got them all before the doctor could activate the release cycles. There was a brief pause on the other end of the radio before Eraserhead grunted and said, "Well done, then. Have you managed to find Shigaraki's pod?" Mirko and I are searching for it as we speak. There's a lot of tunnels branching off from the main room, but it shouldn't take too long once I... This way! She heard the rabbit heroine shout from across the vast room. She was waving at Cronoa to join her, but knowing the other woman, she wouldn't wait for very long. "Think I heard something. Same kind of sounds coming from these." As she spoke, she jerked a thumb at one of the containment pods that had been housing a slumbering high-end Nomu not 10 minutes ago. Uh-oh. Cronoa gulped, her smile vanishing. "Gotta go. Alert the other heroes that we may have missed a spot." "All right, I'll join you as soon as I can. Be safe." Eraserhead's words barely made it through before the young heroine had to cut the communication, but they warmed her heart all the same. "Thanks, Dad," she thought as she and Mirko tore down the hallway that the pro had singled out, bounding off the walls at every corner as to not slow down for even a microsecond. With the speed that they both possessed, it wasn't 10 seconds before they emerged into a room that contained a single massive pod, where Tomura Shigaraki could be seen, floating in suspended animation. With that in plain sight, it took both heroines a brief moment to understand why a half-melted version of the villain was standing at a control panel, a hideous smile plastered on his face. "You're too late," he sneered at the pair as the panel sounded some kind of alert. Even if the clone was about to disappear, he had apparently done what Dr. Garaki could not. Chills ran down Cronoa's spine as memories she had tried to suppress came rushing back to the forefront of her mind, but not so with Mirko. With a shout of rage, the woman launched herself at the vat, her right leg drawing back for a mighty blow that would annihilate the equipment keeping the original Shigaraki alive. Her strike nearly connected, but it was interrupted by a single hand that latched onto her ankle and promptly disintegrated it. The dying clone laughed as Mirko cried out in pain before he wheezed. "I said you're too late. Since I have to go now, I'm going to be taking you with me, number 5. Now it was Mirko's turn to freeze as her leg crumbled to dust, followed quickly by her lower abdomen, with the rest of her not far behind, she knew. Ah, shit. Not how I wanted to go. Fortunately, it wouldn't come to that for her. Before the decay had reached her ribcage, Cronoa snapped out of her temporary stupor. There was someone in danger, and Lemillion, Ground Zero, and Deku had taught her better than to simply stand by with a dropped jaw while someone died in front of her. Lightning blazed in her eyes as she shot forward, her horn glowing brightly the moment she managed to grab onto Mirko's shoulder, golden energy washing over the pair as a result of the contact. At the same time, her legs slammed into Shigaraki's clone without mercy, leaving him as a splattered mess of muddy goop across the lab. This was not quite what she had been aiming for. Her intent was to send the clone through the vat itself, as to take both Shigarakis out simultaneously. But the clone's body had already been losing cohesion, so could not carry the desired force behind the blow. For a split second, the younger heroine's eyes widened, feeling the decay spread to her own body through Mirko's, but she summoned the power she needed directly from One for All, driving back the corrupting influence until both of them were completely whole and unmarred by the clone's dying act. "What the hell was that?" Mirko gasped as she looked down and tested her legs as if to make sure that they weren't about to start disintegrating again. "That clone was already falling apart before we even got to it." "Don't know, and I don't really care right now," Cronoa muttered as she regarded the slumbering villain trapped in stasis. "Hopefully it means the other heroes took care of twice, but right now this guy is our mission." Mirko shook herself before her trademark sass was back in place, leading her to answer, "Then let's wrap it up and leave this creep fest behind. Is that pod keeping him alive, or is he going to wake up if we smash it?" "It looks like the clone started his wake-up procedure, but his bodily modifications aren't complete," Cronoa answered as her ruby eyes scanned the information in front of her.
having seen similar constructs many times in the future. We're in luck. We break all of this stuff now and he's toast. Then what are we waiting for? Mirko eyed the equipment around them before she added, You handle the tech demo while I take care of the tank. I'll let you finish him off, though. Thanks, the younger heroine said with a grin of her own as she started to channel the power she needed once more. She could feel the excitement of the other vestiges pumping energy through her veins as their century-long ambitions were finally set to be fulfilled. Without any further prompting, the pair sprang into action once again. Mirko slammed her heel as hard as she could into the vat, cracking the glass while Cronoa became a blur overhead, demolishing the equipment all around them beyond any hope of repair in seconds. When Mirko's second kick landed, the glass shattered away from her, spraying the room with some kind of fluid mixture identical to the stuff that had been sustaining the Nomu in the other room. The bioelectricity that had been trailing after Cronoa caught onto this substance, surging into Shigaraki's sleeping form, almost as if it had a mind of its own to go after the man. The energy lit him up so harshly the two women could see his skeletal structure while his muscles contorted and spasmed, leaving him writhing on the floor, though he was eerily silent throughout the display. The thought that he might already be dead crossed One for All's collective conscience, but they could not rest until it was confirmed beyond all doubt. That notion in mind, Cronoa let out a piercing war cry and shot toward her mortal enemy from above, her arm charged to execute a full-powered smash, consequences to her physical well-being and the integrity of the structure around them be damned. This was it. The moment of justified vengeance was at hand, and there could be no room for error. The instant that her fist connected with his face, blazing red eyes snapped open, and a gnarled hand lashed onto her wrist with enough force to kill her momentum and lock her entire body in place. What do you think of my grandiose delusions now, assholes? Kai asked as he leveled his darksaber at the villain's group leader. You want to stand there and tell me I'm the crazy one again, or would you like to take this last chance to surrender? This is some kind of trick, the woman stammered, though her pale features and quaking voice didn't lend much credence to her declaration. All Might is retired. He was too injured to fighting All for One to continue being a hero. Really? Kai snorted in response as his teacher clenched his mighty fists in preparation for what would undoubtedly come next. That's your line of reasoning? Last I checked, I was supposed to be too dead to keep being a hero. But here we are. If death could not keep young Kai from acting as a hero ought, then what excuse have I, the symbol of peace, to stand idly by while such atrocities are committed? All Might thundered, his smile broadening even further, which the villains knew meant nothing good for them. Allow me to say it again, villains! I am here! There was a shuddering motion from where the two heroes stood, and before the throng of 1,000+ villains could even try to understand what had happened, the lush park they had been waiting in had been replaced by a landscape of craters and burnt earth, whereupon many bodies were scattered. The air screamed above them from the violent speeds and displays of power, while traces of black lightning continued to echo across the angry wind currents above them. But of the men themselves, the few remaining villains who possessed their awareness could find no sign. On a nearby rooftop, hidden from all observers, a woman dressed in a sleeveless dark green and black bodysuit watched the spectacle unfold, nodding to herself when the heroes quickly made to rejoin the main force, having finished the skirmish even quicker than she had expected. Tapping the comlink hooked into her ear, she waited for the dial tone to play out. As soon as the call was connected, she wasted no time in saying, "The enemy ambush has been dealt with. Given All Might's involvement, I doubt the front will try anything like that again without at least one of their top lieutenants in action, if not Shigaraki himself." They already attempted to isolate him, huh? Umbra muttered from the other end of the line. I thought that it might be possible, but it's still earlier than I would have expected. They're scared of him. They want him out of the way as quickly as possible. Nagant shrugged. I know if I were on their side, he'd be the first person I'd want to target. Lowered morale for the heroes and all that. Even if that's true, they should know better than to try and take him on before the battle has a chance to do a number on his energy reserves and psyche. I thought you said that kid has pretty much unlimited stamina, the woman asked with a small frown. I know that, but the villains don't, which is why they should have... Doesn't matter. Umbra growled. I have some things to take care of, so I'll be going dark for a while. I'll contact you when I'm in the clear. You're free to contact the other heroes now, if you so desire, but don't mention my involvement in your release. As far as the other heroes are concerned, the Commission has cleared your name and released you after uncovering the truth of the false charges your previous management laid upon you. You sure it's not best if I lay low until the next phase of your plan kicks into effect? She inquired as she made for the nearest door that would take her back inside of the building. If you're not in the presence of the other heroes when Phase 7 kicks off, they might just wonder if you had something to do with it. Umbra answered, sounding a little impatient as he did. I timed your release for 3 weeks ago to show that you've had ample time to take your revenge, but you haven't. When evidence that the Paranormal Liberation Front were the ones responsible for the attack come to light, no one will even question your part in it, especially given how you were so busy following their orders to look out for the hero's new golden goose. Not gonna lie, it's a pretty interesting challenge to keep the target in my sights alive instead of dropping him. Nagant snorted with a grim sort of amusement. You really know how to rack up the surprises, Umbra. One of my many talents. The unseen benefactor chuckled. All right. Like I said, I'm going dark. Expect contact shortly before nightfall. Understood, she replied, her voice becoming completely businesslike again. I'll keep my eye on Hikari until then. If he's really all that you say he is, I'm interested to see what kind of world will rise up under the influence of his brand of heroism. Ah, what's wrong, Todoroki? Shadow laughed as he continued to hold out against the hellish flames that were trying to break through his telekinetic barrier and reduce him and Hawks to cinders. Did I touch a nerve? Who the hell do you think you are? Dabi raged from within the seething torrent. Just a shadow on the wall. The red-cloaked hero replied with a smug grin. Nobody ever thinks much of shadows. They're just there, after all. No one thinks about what they witness, keep to themselves, unable to speak. I guess that makes me the shadow that found its voice. In spite of the newcomer's projected confidence and handling of the situation thus far, Hawks could see the sweat starting to bead on his forehead. He may be keeping the heat out, but blocking an attack like that can't be easy, especially given how long he's been at it. The number 2 hero thought as he started to weigh their options. He could easily make it out of the window before Dabi would even know that he was gone, but taking the kid with him might be a different matter. If I move him, he might end up dropping that shield and we'll both take serious damage, he reasoned as his brow bent downward. Don't be so quick to count me out. Hawks gave a small start of alarm when he heard a thought that was not his own, but he quickly realized who had to be responsible. The notion was confirmed when the voice added, he's not going to be able to sustain this level of attack for much longer. The second he fizzes out, send him over the railing to the ground floor with some of your feathers. So you just here to kill every major player you come across, or do you plan to take any of the leadership in alive? Hawks thought in reply, hoping the telepathic link was not one way like Mandalay of the Pussycats. That concern was laid to rest when Shadow's mind laughed in response before forming the answer. We're only 2 stories up. A fall from this height won't kill him, but it'll make our jobs easier. As for whether or not he lives beyond the next few minutes, that'll be up to his allies. Before Hawks could even begin to wonder what Shadow was talking about, he got an idea, one far too detailed and thought out to have been his own mind seeking an answer to their current predicament. His eyes widened with comprehension as they flicked between Shadow and the flood of azure plasma that was starting to waver, showing Dabi standing before them with smoke drifting off of his body from the burnt patches of skin, while his blue eyes glittered furiously. You're insane, the feathered hero said, sounding dumbstruck for once in his life. Yep, Shadow chuckled darkly, his silver eyes gleaming maliciously. Then the flames gave out completely and Shadow dropped his hands, even as the shimmer in the air between them and their enemy faded away. Hawks had less than a second to make a decision, and when that time had elapsed, he was almost cursing himself for what he had to do. His wings rustled with movement, and a handful of feathers shot out to snag Dabi by his clothes, who reacted almost as fast as his attacker, letting out a short burst of flames from his body that incinerated the downy projectiles. Even so, the brief contact had been enough to throw him off balance, which Shadow and Hawks took full advantage of. Both heroes closed the gap in less than an instant, with the elder pro using his large feathers to slash at the lanky villain, while his younger comrade lunged to stab Dabi in the shoulder, piercing muscle and bone so that he instinctively unleashed flames hot enough to not only drive his attackers back, but to turn the blade into a glowing brand of steel far too hot for most anyone to touch. Shadow dropped his smile in favor of a snarl as he was forced to retreat, but he did not do so without finishing his task. Thanks to Hawks' large feathers adding to the weight of his simple piercing maneuver, Dabi was teetering dangerously close to the railing that prevented people from simply walking out into open air. With a short burst of power, his will saw to it that the villain was shoved right over the railing, a yell of rage following him as the sword came out of his shoulder while he fell down to the first floor of the building. Officers and foot soldiers of the Paranormal Liberation Front could only look on with the solid mixture of confusion and awe as the lieutenant was seemingly struck down. Of course, Dabi wasn't so soft as to be defeated by a fall such as that. His flames created a powerful thermal updraft that cushioned his fall and allowed him to control his descent to the point where he was able to turn the fall into a roll that absorbed most of the downward momentum and discarded the danger it posed to his already damaged body. As soon as he got his feet under him, he glared up at Hawks and Shadow, the latter of whom was now nursing burns on his hands, but once again had that stupid, smug grin plastered on his face. Before the flame villain could call out to his troops, he was surprised to see that Toga and Compress had leaped over the railing on the second floor and were now walking toward him, a tense look about them that immediately set him on edge. They see those heroes up there, right? He thought as he readied his quirk to attack their enemies the second he had a clear shot. Just as he was about to draw in a breath to start giving orders, there was a glimmer of steel in Toga's hands as she lunged at Dobby with murderous intent in her eyes. What the... He gasped as he evaded, his flames aiding in his ability to avoid harm. This day was not turning out the way he thought it would. It's all your fault, she cried with a mixture of fury and sadness. Gina's dead and it's all your fault! It seems that our decision to trust you was gravely misguided, Compress added as he flexed his fingers, a handful of marbles coming to rest between them. Of all of our numbers, Babagawar did not deserve the closing act that you rendered unto him. What the hell are you two idiots going on about? Dobby demanded furiously, his senses on high alert for another potential attack. Don't play dumb, Toga snarled, another knife making its way into her left hand. You've been with the heroes from the beginning, haven't you? You're not just a traitor to us, but Mr. Stain. With the heroes? Dobby replied, his eyes flashing dangerously as the heat in the room started to skyrocket at a rapid pace while blue flames once again decorated his body. Why the hell would I ever side with that trash? Drop the act, Compress retorted, his voice uncharacteristically harsh as he did. We know who you are and where your allegiances truly lie. Even as more soldiers came into the wing of the complex to discover the source of the noises, he raised his voice and announced, All troops, this man has betrayed the Grand Commander and is to be regarded as an enemy. His true identity is Toya Todoroki, the firstborn son of Endeavor, and a mole planted by the heroes to take us all down. What the... Dobby couldn't even begin to wrap his head around what was happening as every pair of eyes in the room suddenly became hostile and directed at him. You seriously think... I'm not the mole, it's Hawks! As if, Shadow shouted back from above as he pointed an accusing finger at the fiery villain. Hawks and Twice were onto you. You killed them to try and cover it up before they could tell the rest of us that the heroes were about to launch a surprise attack. If I hadn't stepped in, he'd have killed both of them. You're seriously going to take the words of some rando over mine? Dobby glowered at his tentative allies. What, just because I have a fire quirk, you think I'm Endeavor's son? The one that died years ago? His body was never found after he went missing in a forest fire, amidst flames that just so happened to match the description of yours. Hawks now joined in, causing Dobby to flinch as he realized they really were onto him. Awfully big set of coincidences if what you're telling is the truth. That's ignoring the fact that Twice's body is back in that room, burnt to a crisp. I definitely couldn't have done that, which means he dies! Toga snarled as she lunged forward again. Soldiers, let us assist this man in his final exit. Stage left! Compress ordered, causing many of the villains in the room to let out shouts of rage as they began to power up their quirks, intent on killing the apparent traitor where he stood. As the sounds of battle began anew on the first floor, Shadow watched from above with a cold smile on his face. These idiots are almost too easy to manipulate, he snorted with undisguised contempt. They'll realize they've been played eventually, but not before they either neutralize Dobby or he kills most of the members in this section of the compound. What the hell did you do to get them to turn on each other so fast? Hawks asked the younger hero, clearly disturbed by both his apparent skills and callous approach to ending the lives of others. You know I'm a telepath, Shadow replied, even as blue flames shot up from below, the result of Dobby turning a dozen of his former allies into ash. Switching to his mental voice to communicate more clearly, he then went on to say, I've honed my quirk to read any number of memories as easily as the thoughts people are having at the moment of contact. I can also use this aspect of my ability to plant false ideas and fake memories in a way that my target ends up thinking they came up with the notion themselves. I most often use this ability to make people forget that they've even seen me, which allows me to hide in plain sight at any given moment. It's also how I learned who Dobby really is, how I gave Toga and Compress the idea that you tipped them off about his identity earlier this morning. Now that they believe the idea, and since it's partially based off the truth, it's all but guaranteed they'll have everyone in this army going after him, granted that he's able to survive this mess. Hawk's mind was made to accept all this information in less than a second, but it took him another few moments to really comprehend it. Once he had, he shuddered and said in a low voice, You're one sick guy, aren't you? Turning them on each other like that. Spare me the holier-than-thou crap, Shadow deadpanned. This is war, and only dead men fight fair. These villains made themselves enemies of the free people of this nation. Now they're reaping the consequences of that decision. If I can get these morons to kill each other so that the heroes suffer fewer casualties, all the better. Turning away from the increasingly brutal battle, he then said, let's move out. My quirk's exhausted for the moment, so I don't care to chance someone figuring this mess out and coming after us. We need to inform HQ that twice has been dealt with and the leadership is starting to splinter. With that, he spun on his heel, his cape billowing behind him, while Hawks took a moment to seemingly decide on a course of action before he made to follow the younger hero. The commission has gone too far. He thought darkly as he readied his wings for flight. If they can turn a kid into this kind of remorseless killing machine, things need to change. Even if Bugbaigawara had to die, he deserved a real chance to surrender. And the way that this kid messes with people's minds, what were they thinking? Ashley Queen had no shame in admitting that she was close to a panic. Not 10 minutes into the conflict, and Kurai had gone against the very plan he had implemented and sworn to uphold. With every second that passed where she could not keep an eye on him, she was sorely tempted to scream in sheer frustration and terror of the unknown. All their training, all their practices meant to hone their powers and precision to a degree that would enable them to harm, even cripple, but not to kill their enemies, all deserted her as they came face to face with opponents who stood between her and rescuing her beloved from whatever danger he had put himself in yet again. Unfortunately for their enemies, this translated into Ashley Queen refusing to pull her punches as she tore through their enemies' superior numbers, with her peers, even Ground Zero and Deku, just barely managing to keep up with the cracking pace she had set for the lot of them. As it was with her, any thoughts of worrying about the moral implications of their violent actions went out the window the second they all realized that Kai was in danger of being isolated and set up as a ripe target for capture, however impossible the chances might seem. Heads up! Uravity suddenly yelled to her squad mates. I don't know who heard the comms just now, but we've got aerial forces inbound. Fine by me! Ground Zero snarled, the material of his suit shifting rapidly until it conjured twin rockets sitting over his shoulder blades. Uraraka with me! Flying in our zone's the last mistake they're gonna make! Try and see if you can spot Kurai while you're up there, the melting heroine called over while jet-like constructs let off explosions, powered by the boy's nitro sweat that took the volatile hero to the air. Shut up! I know! We'll let you know as soon as we see him, Uravity assured her friend while her suit manifested a cable that shot out from her right arm to sling her on a path after their comrade. Just as Deku was about to volunteer an energy burst that would disrupt the flight pattern of the incoming forces to soften them up, there was a familiar voice that finally came into each of their earpieces. Hang back, their friend told them. I've got this one. He really has a sense for dramatic timing, doesn't he? Commented Froppy while she used her tongue to smack another villain across the face so that the flamethrower sticking out of his arm went off its mark and set fire to his teammates, who immediately yowled in pain. Thunderclap and flash, they all heard Kai growl over the radio. Eightfold! Black lightning blasted from rooftop to rooftop just up the road, with each streak serving to strike down one of the villains coming to menace their squadron. Even as the dark thunder roared across the city sector, none of said villains seemed eager to rise after the beatdown they had just received, if they were even capable of rising at all. I don't know whether to punch you or kiss you right now, Ashley Queen shouted as her fiancé skidded to a stop behind her, traces of One for All still crackling along his body. How about a compromise? He grunted as he swung his saber to intercept a water blast that turned into steam on impact. Punch these guys now, kiss me later. Deal! She muttered as she lashed out with her acid, destroying the support gear of several villains in the process, as well as fumigating the air with the stench of burning flesh while a new round of screams erupted from their enemies as their skin was melted right off their bones, destroying their ability to even entertain the idea of continuing the fight. What happened to you back there? Uravity added as she and the others cringed at the stench of burning flesh that was the result of Ashley Queen's attack, even while using her quirk to float up another group of villains so that Deku could charge in and slam them all in a heap on the ground in one fell swoop. You promised to stick close to us. Some schmuck with a hypno-type quirk got me to follow him without thinking about what I was doing. Kai admitted through a slight growl as he used Black Whip to snag one of the enemy troops that his friend had missed and then slam him into the pavement hard enough to leave cracks beneath his body in the process. Blood gushed from the man's mouth and ears, meaning that if he wasn't already dead, the internal injuries that he had to be suffering wouldn't let him linger for long. On any other day up to this point, the young heroes would have abhorred the very acts of violence they were committing, and Kai was certain that many of them would do so once the fighting was over with. But this was the reality of war. They had come today, knowing what would be expected of them, and had each resolved to do what needed to be done. For Eri's future to remain undone, we have to do this, Kai thought, even as he swung his sword at a villain with bat-like wings and fangs who happened to get a little too close. He refused to flinch at the yowl of agony that erupted from the man's lungs as he was relieved of his supplementary extremities before the hilt of the blade struck him in the side of his neck, producing a sharp crunch that left him as a sack of limp flesh and bones on the street. Turning away from the body, he was just in time to see Deku and Freezer Burn unleash a Prominence Flash combo that incinerated an entire high street and every villain that stood in their path, along with the trace tears that could be seen leaking from the Greenette's eyes. To the side of that, Ground Zero fired off an AP shot that blasted apart a trio of villains who had erected some kind of force field in a desperate attempt to shield themselves and their friends from the walking devastation in the form of high school students that were ripping them apart like packing foam. "Did your backup plan have to bail you out?" the blonde hero snarled as he landed a few feet away, the others having already taken care of the remaining enemy soldiers in their presence. "He showed up, but weirdly enough, somebody else helped me before he even got there," his silver-haired rival said with a thoughtful frown as he kept track of danger sense to ensure they weren't about to be the victims of another ambush. "Since the cat's out of the bag, he's... well... get these evacuees moving, double time!" One of the commanding officers from the military shouted at the heroes and his soldiers, having noticed a group of 20-odd villains headed right for the rear of the civilian column. "We don't have time for straggling!" "They're moving as fast as they can," Ingenium shouted back while his younger brother zoomed by, carrying an older lady on his back in the process. "Most of the people in this group are geriatric. They can only do so much, and there are only so many of us to—" "I know, damn it!" The CO growled, though his frustration wasn't really directed at the pro. He, like many of the soldiers in his company, had been less than thrilled about the idea of fighting alongside children in a full-scale battle, and to see things actually unfolding in front of his eyes, seeing kids no older than his own daughter tear into the ranks of villains with full intent to kill as to avoid being killed, was not something that even nearly 2 decades of service in the military could have prepared him for. At the very least, the group of traitors coming at them now should be handled by him and his soldiers. Let the heroes do what they do best, what most of them really want to be doing anyway, he decided as he took the safety off of his rifle. "Blue Shoe Squadron, halt! About face!" he shouted, causing the mentioned company to immediately snap around, weapons in hand as they ceased their escort efforts and let the column move ahead of them. "Hostiles inbound, 4 o'clock. Exterminate with extreme prejudice. Fire when ready." "Sir!" As the sound of automatic weapons being made ready filled the air, the citizens just ahead of them stirred with unease, urging those further up to hasten even more, as so they might be spared a first-hand witnessing of the upcoming bloodbath. Just as the CO had set the leader of the villain squad in his sights and was exhaling a steady breath, something interrupted his line of sight, causing his finger to retreat from the trigger like it had been burned. There was a rumble on the ground that vibrated into everyone's shoes as that something landed directly in front of the Paranormal Liberation Front members, who all seemed to possess enough common sense to come to a crashing halt before they could come into direct contact with whatever this new thing happened to be. No, not something. Is that? The CO's breath caught in his throat as one of the privates in his company started to give voice to the sight before them, before her tongue failed her. Not that he could blame her. Someone. "Going after those whose backs are turned, A booming voice echoed across the outskirts of the city, the sound drawing the renewed interest of those who had been all too eager to flee only moments ago. "How cowardly can you people get? To make matters worse, you've come to take the easy pickings, while your comrades lie behind you on the battlefield, broken and beaten. Have you so lost your hearts that you've spared no thought for what they must be suffering in your absence?" "You kidding me with this?" One of the villains snapped, even as his comrades all quailed at the sight before them. "The government's so scared of us, they send in some kind of knockoff All Might to get us quaking in our boots? What kind of cheap-ass tactic is that?" The lumbering mountain of muscle that was Japan's image of heroism rose to his full 220 centimeter height, a broad smile on his face that did nothing to calm the nerves of those who were currently receiving it. "A knockoff, you say?" he replied, drawing his right arm back, slowly into a fist, steadily, in absolutely no rush whatsoever. His smile somehow got even bigger as he added, "Ha! I suppose one could define a knockoff by being a lesser quality brand to the original. So in that regard, perhaps I am no more than a second-rate symbol of peace at this point in time. But that doesn't mean that I can afford to let fiends such as you get away with what you've done." The tips of his knuckles whitened, and that was the only warning that his enemies got. "Texas Smash!" The air thundered and the ground screamed as it was torn asunder, chunks of the earth flying away from the retreating civilians and mingling with the villains who were all but powerless in the face of All Might's return. They went flying clear across the greenbelt to the city outskirts, and did not stop until they were all planted somewhere firmly in the walls of an office complex. Throughout all of this, none of the military personnel had moved. Hardly any of them could remember to breathe, and if they had been able to check on the citizens in their care right then, no one would have been surprised to realize that they were wearing the same looks of stunned disbelief on their faces. It was to this jaw-dropped crowd that All Might turned around to display his winning smile and proudly declare, "Don't worry, citizens, everything will be fine now." As the blond man drew in a deep breath, he had to fight back tears of joy from occupying his bright green eyes as he once again announced, "You're safe, because I am here!" He's being All Might? Uravity guessed. Yeah, being All Might, yeah. I can imagine the relief that will generate for the citizens seeing him on active duty again. Freezerburn commented as he flicked off the last of his flames from his last attack from his fingertips. Wait, go back to that part about someone else helping you. Ashley Queen panted as she wiped her brow free of some of the excess acid and sweat. You're lucky, honey. We didn't even have time to report to the others that you'd gone off alone. Yeah, All Might only came because my suit alerted him that I'd left your guys' proximity, I know. Kai nodded, checking his scouter to confirm the area was currently clear of any hostile forces. After informing the others that it should be safe to take a quick breather, he switched back to the original topic by saying, I have to admit, it was weird once I realized what was happening. Whoever took out the person hypnotizing me seemed like they'd been in position for a bit. Almost like they were waiting for the villains to make a move of some kind. What do you mean? Deku asked, his eyes dark and vacant as he did. On some level in the back of their minds, it has to be said how depressing it was that none of his usual enthusiasm or drive to learn about any sort of hero who might have come to his friend's rescue was present. The person who rescued me was a sniper who made a shot from about a full city block away off a 30-story building. Wait a sec. Kai's eyes were widening as something from the deeper recesses of his memory struggled to claw its way free. Tapping the side of his scouter, he then said, Bring up imaging of unidentified gunmen prior to last enemy contact. The scouter blurred through several hundred images in the span of a few seconds before a somewhat fuzzy image of a person leaning against the railing of a rooftop remained on the lens. Enlarge and render into a 3D model. Even as the interchangeable matter began to do the assigned work, a new voice entered the picture. I'll save you guys some time and just introduce myself, said a woman as she descended upon them, aided by some kind of compact jets attached to her calves. Both Deku and Kai's eyes widened as they recognized the approaching figure, both of them unconsciously dropping back into combat-ready stances as they did. Seeing this, the woman placed her arms firmly behind her back as she landed among the students before saying, Relax, kids. I'm here to help you out. Deku, who is this lady? Uravity inquired, having managed to accurately read the look on her boyfriend's face. Funny you should use that word. Kai chuckled dryly, though he seemed content to let his friend do the rest of the talking. Everyone, this is Lady Nagant. Deku answered warily, still apparently unconvinced of her intention. Wait, wasn't this broad tossed into Tartarus for killing another hero? Ground Zero growled, his gauntlets taking shape on his wrists in a near instant. Nagant's left eye twitched, but she showed no other signs of irritation as she made the answer. Yeah, that was a load of crap spun by some of the former members of the Safety Commission. Long story short, they framed me for the murder of a hero when I started questioning their methods, and tossed me in Tartarus to shut me up. Thanks to your friend here, though, all the negative press and suspicions of the public forced the current admins to uncover some of the skeletons in their predecessor's closet, which led to a more thorough investigation about my situation. I got let out a few weeks ago so that I could participate in the war. And just like that, you're going to take orders from the organization that screwed you over. Kai replied dryly, disbelief written clearly on his face. I don't buy that for a second. What's your angle? Believe it or not, you're my angle, kid. Nagant shrugged, though she made a point to keep her arms behind her back, which he and Deku knew was meant to help put them at ease. After all, if she were to put her hands above her head, as most criminals were expected when confronted by a law officer, it would have put her in a position to blow their brains out in less than a second, should she choose to do so. Having placed her arms behind herself, with her elbows in particular facing away from them, indicated that she was sincere in her insistence that she meant them no harm. Not that the wary heroes were going to take her at her word for it. What do you mean Hikari is your angle? Freezerburn demanded, not bothering to make it subtle when he placed himself between the woman and his friend. Like I said, because of everything that's happened ever since he apparently beat death, I'm now a free woman. Nagant answered them in a peaceable enough tone. I guess a more simple way of putting this is that I feel like I owe him, even if my getting out of wrongful imprisonment wasn't a goal of his. Adding a strangely soft smile to her face, the formerly incarcerated heroine then said, "Once I understood why I was free, I read up on you, guardian hero. You're an interesting guy. Someone who's seen the worst of what the superhero society has created, from both the heroes and the villains side of things, and yet manages to be what I always imagined heroes would be when I was a young girl. Guess I'm really curious to see what kind of world is going to come about if you're the one the next generation is going to be looking forward to whenever they think of the ideal hero. I'm not in this to be a leader or a prime example of heroism," Kai informed her bluntly. "I just know that I have the power that's meant to be used to bring down villains, and I'm going to do it to do just that, even if it means taking people out in the process. Is someone like that a person worth looking up to? I'd rather people look up to someone who's willing to admit they ain't made out of sunshine and rainbows than crooks who want everyone to think that heroes and villains are just two sides of the one coin that makes up our society," the woman answered him. "Our world's got plenty of gray between the black and white the safety commission's got everyone believing in. Something I'm pretty sure you're aware of by now." "Look, we ain't got all day to chat about ideals and that crap," Ground Zero said impatiently. "Say, man, you getting a bad sense from her or not? We got stuff to do." Kai took less than a moment to be angry with himself for not focusing danger sense on Nagant before realizing that he sensed no deadly, or even ill, intentions from her. "She's on our side as far as I can tell," he admitted, which had a visible effect on his friends, each of them relaxing to various degrees. "Bakugo's right. We've cleared this sector of villains, so we'd best move on to the next area." "Mind if I tag along?" Nagant inquired. "If you're half as good as the reports I've read on your track record say you are, we'd be stupid not to have you watching our backs," Kai admitted with a wry smile. "You sure you don't have somewhere else to be right now?" "Commission's basically told me to play long-range support and target any enemy leaders that I can find," she answered with another shrug as she finally allowed her arms to return to a more relaxed position. "Based on the resources they committed to that sad excuse for an ambush I just saw, it seems like they're going to be sending the big guns after you, kid. The way I see it, I keep an eye on you, and the top dogs for the enemy will end up in my sights before long." "Fine by me," Kai shrugged, though he missed the look that Ashley Queen and Ground Zero exchanged behind his back, with the latter nodding quietly as the materials of his suit once again shifted into a new shape on his palm. "We should get a move on to the sector west of here," Froppy commented as she dropped her hand from her radio. "Ida's on his way to meet up with us. Says he has some kind of intel that we should hear in person." "Then let's move," Freezerburn said as he and Kai moved to lead the way in the proper direction. As Nagant moved forward at Deku's invitation so that they and Aravati could discuss something, Ground Zero and Ashley Queen kept to the rear, with the former tossing something lightly in the pro's direction. His face bore a wry smile as what appeared to be nothing more than a black disc attached itself to the hem of Nagant's battle skirt. If she had any idea the device was in place, and he wasn't under the impression that it wasn't within the realm of possibility, she said nothing about it, nor made any move to remove the device. Having seen this, the paint girl sidled closer to him and muttered in a low tone that only he could hear, "Think that'll be enough?" "I wouldn't worry about him," he snorted in response. "Danger Sense will let him know if she's gonna try anything." "Then why are you and me having the same idea right now?" "'Cause that quirk only works if somebody has hostile intent," Ground Zero answered ominously. "Someone like her probably wouldn't even need to get worked up to make a kill shot. She could probably do it without blinking. We all know our job is to protect him here, but I'm not settling for anything less than a perfect win for our class. We're all going back to UA together, and I ain't taking any chances that somebody tries to pull a fast one when our guard's down. I don't buy it for a second that she just shows up to help your boyfriend any more than you do. So the second she aims that arm at one of us to get to him, she'll be in more pieces than the stuff that makes up our suits." In spite of herself, a dark smile made its way onto Ashley Queen's face at that promise. "Thanks for looking out for him." "Keep your thanks. I'm not doing this to be helpful. I'm just making sure this time he stays long enough for me to surpass him." "All right, Umbra," the president of the Heroes Public Safety Commission muttered while she interlaced her fingers on the desk in front of her. "What's next in this grand plan of yours?" She and the rest of the top brass were gathered in one of the organization's off-site meetings rooms on the orders of the mysterious figure who had managed to single-handedly blackmail and or threaten the lives of everyone that they cared about. She had a pretty good idea of what was about to happen to all of them, but also knowing there was nothing she could do to prevent it. If nothing else, the death of Yuto Hisaki had served as an adequate warning to the consequences of attempted subterfuge. Forget trying to mount an actual act of defiance. The speaker that had been set up at the end of the table buzzed with static for a moment before a voice came out of it. But not the heavily filtered, distorted tones that had been tormenting them for months. No, this time the device carried the voice of what sounded like a young boy as it said, "You've done what I require of each of you. No further actions on your part will be required. Before I proceed with the final phase of my plan, know that you have my gratitude for freeing Lady Nagant. Her services and the knowledge she carries will prove invaluable to society in the days to come." Who the hell are you? One of the men in the room demanded hotly, clearly having been rattled by the new speaker on the other end of the line. "Where's Umbra?" "I am Umbra," the newcomer answered. "Or at least, I'm one half of Umbra." "So there are more than one of you," the president muttered, her composure remaining unbroken even now. "I thought as much." "Don't try to get clever with me, lady," the second Umbra snapped. "It's largely due to your cleverness that I've been forced to take these actions. You are not in control of this situation by any means. The only reason you've come to learn anything about how I operate is because I've allowed it." "What do you want from us?" she replied, her tone still calm and unwavering. "Do you want us to grovel and beg for our lives? To apologize for our actions leading up to now?" "I would if I didn't know that you've all had your heads so far up your asses for so long that you don't even remember what it was like to face the light of truth," Umbra snarled in response. "Now I'm talking, you're listening." "If this is your real voice, it certainly explains your naivete," the president said, apparently determined to have at least the victory of denying their tormentor this minor verbal score. "It explains how you know nothing of the hard truth behind the world of heroes you so worship. My name is Akudori Hogosha," Umbra interrupted, the last name proving enough to silence the woman, as well as any possible protests from her subordinates. After all, every member in the room knew that name and the hero associated with it. Without pausing, the boy went on to say, "I know well the ugliness that lurks beneath the world of heroics, perhaps even more than you do, sitting up in your ivory towers, away from the filth that you've forced your pawns to plunge their hands into. Because of all of you and your predecessors, people have been allowed to believe in a world of black and white, never understanding the gray shadows cast by heroes and villains alike. You people have forgotten what it is to suffer at the hands of a villain, how living through the fallout can be infinitely more painful than the easy release of death, and all that being the survivors of those horrors can entail. Because of the lies that you have spun with your narratives, society has become so repulsed by the truth, it takes a villain like Stain to tell it." "What truth?" demanded another committee member. "You have distorted the meaning of the word hero, and even what it means to be good or evil," Akudori answered them. "You train people who want nothing more than to help their societies to instead murder without remorse or hesitation because of those in your way conflict with the convenient narrative you've implemented into society. You would have used my brother as a broom to sweep your problems under the rug, so that people would only see the bright and shining new hero come to save them, unknowing of the true horrors that you condone and enable. You are so entrenched in this refusal to admit wrongdoing, you don't even consider that it might be best for people to know the truth. The truth only brings about disillusionment with life itself." Yet another member shot back. "You would have us take away people's only hope that things can get better? Is that what you would have us do?" "I would have people believe in the true heroes who stand out as the champions amidst their corrupted brethren," their captor roared in response. "I would hold you responsible for the messes you've created. Lady Nagant, Stain, even the Meta Liberation Army. I hold you and yours accountable for their creation and the calamities that were born of their atrocities." "All right, then, what is this?" the president inquired before one of her subordinates could further provoke the boy. "You said that it is worse to live through the fallout than it is to die. Is that your intent? To make us live to see the consequences that you have forced upon us for our efforts to safeguard society?" "Good grief. Even in defeat, you can't see that what you've done is so damn wrong," Akudori growled. "But to answer your question, no. You're all about to die. It'll be quicker than each of you deserve, but I'm in a bit of a hurry today. To sum it up, you lot need to die because you're too dangerous for society to tolerate any longer." At this, many of the people present paled to an unhealthy color, but again, the president kept her nerves of steel. "If you're going to kill us, why bother with this show and tell?" she asked him. "I might almost take this as you giving us an opportunity to repent of our evil ways." "It's catharsis for me, nothing more," Akudori said flatly, which finally got a chill running down the president's spine. I wanted all of you to know that this entire time, you who know so much better than everyone beneath you, you've been manipulated by a child. I wanted you to know that in the end, your entire legacy will amount to nothing more than being revealed as an insidious plot that All for One himself would applaud. That in the end, the truth will be brought to light, that you and yours are the villains of this story. And what will that make you? The president asked tightly. You kill us and you will become everything you claim to hate about us. No, Akudori said in a biting tone, because unlike all of you, I will not hide what I have become. Before this war is over, the world will know me for what I am. They will know that everyone in my family is a villain, save for the guardian hero. I've already ensured beyond all doubt that the naked truth about me will be brought to light. Planning to hijack the internet again, are we? Not at all. The young villain replied with what sounded like a smirk. I've ensured that my comprehensive confession concerning every single one of my crimes will make its way into the hands of the one person I know will do everything in his power to hunt me down and bring me to justice. The true justice. And just who might that be? The president demanded, even as her stomach began to twist itself into a knot. That's for me to know and you to wonder about while you burn in the afterlife. Umbra sneered even as a loud beeping began to emanate from beneath the table. Have a plus ultra ride down to hell, assholes. The beeping stopped and the room was instantly enveloped in a cloud of green smoke. Kurai, thank goodness you're safe! Ingenium Mark II cried as he skidded to a stop in front of his friends, the pipes on his legs immediately hissing as if in protest while his new suit got to work on cooling his engines. I heard from All Might that you were... Tenya, I am really touched by your concern, but we have got things going on. Kurai cut him off as he grasped his friend's armored forearm. You said you had some intel for us. Nagant was currently perched on a nearby rooftop, as much to keep an eye out for any potential ambushers, as well as avoid explaining her presence to the excitable, stringent young hero. For the time being, anyway. Does it have to do with the citizens knowing to evacuate even though there was no public announcement? Todoroki inquired. Ah, yes. The class representative nodded, his gaze sharpening as his helmet retracted from his head so they could all see eye to eye. I spoke to several different families whilst aiding in their escape, and all of them corroborated a similar narrative. That being, they each received personalized emails that urged them to grab their most valued possessions and to leave the city by this hour. Wait, personalized? Uravity repeated, her tone conveying the confusion that everyone present felt. Like, each person got a different notification? The warning wasn't some mass broadcast? Ashley Queen added. I thought the same at first, but apparently this was not the case, Ingenium answered with a rapid shake of his head. Each person was addressed by name in individual messages. The text even went so far as to name the members of each household beyond the original recipients, as if to ensure that no one should be forgotten in the rush to escape. That's really creepy, Kai muttered, feeling a shudder crawl down his spine. I mean, sweet that whatever this is got everyone out in time for us to start the fighting, but he's awake. The current wielder of One for All's words died in his mouth as he felt his throat dry with an indescribable sense of dread, one too heavy and suffocating to just be his own. He felt the edges of his vision go dark, almost as if his mind were trying to delve into the psychic realm in which other vestiges dwelled and spoke with him, whenever they decided that a face-to-face was necessary. Even so, he resisted the sensation, forcing himself to remain on alert, something that grew far easier when his head felt like it was going to split in half as a result of danger sense screaming at him as it never had before. Ah! He choked out through the pain, unable to help himself. As Yalba doubled over, he felt Mina's arms keeping him upright and steady, and her familiar presence helped to soothe the unpleasant sensation, if only a little. Kurai, what's wrong? She asked, her voice burdened with worry. Is there an attack headed our way, or... It's him, he heard Deku say before he could get a word out. Everyone in the gathering turned to see that the former wielder of One for All had grown even paler, nearing a sickly gray shade that made them all worry for reasons beyond the given circumstances, if that were even possible. As if to add to their growing senses of collective dread, the ground beneath their feet started to vibrate as the Greenette murmured, Shigaraki, he's coming. But if he... Ashley Queen now took her turn to pale to an unhealthy color as she snapped her eyes back onto Kai's darkened orbs, which seemed to be on the verge of glazing out of focus. Eri, she said as she shook his shoulder insistently. Could I have... If Shigaraki's awake, what happened to Eri? Well, I can't exactly find it in me to be upset at the fact that you're here to help. I would prefer to be kept abroad of our side's assets before we march into battle, grumbled the colonel who had been put in charge of handling the initial contact with the enemy force of the Paranormal Liberation Front. He was currently eyeing a grinning All Might, who was accompanied by a number of awestruck heroes that had just finished escorting the civilians to a minimum safe distance from the projected battle zone. If their gazes were anything to go by, they hadn't been in the loop for this particular surprise any more than he had been. Not that it made anything less annoying for him, having been kept in the dark when something so pivotal to the war effort had apparently been hiding under their noses this entire time. With all due respect, I thought that you had been forced to retire due to the injuries all for one inflicted on you, All Might, Colonel Yami muttered, while the massive hero gave everyone a somewhat apologetic smile. Mind telling us why you pulled the wool over everyone's eyes all this time? That was not my intent, sir. All Might answered quickly, his smile fading away in tandem with the words. I truly believe that the fight with All for One was my last. But it seems that fate had other designs. For you see, Before he could launch into a speech, which would surely rally the heroes and military personnel alike, the booming tones stopped erupting from his chest so that he could turn to look toward the east, toward the mountain range that bordered the other side of the city. At first, everyone assumed the man had paused for dramatic effect, but the pause began to grow into an awkward length that Yami was set to break himself, until he saw the look on the hero's upturned face. All Might? He asked, his voice much less confrontational than it had been mere moments ago. What's happening? A sweat drop rolled down the side of All Might's left brow before he swallowed and replied, Colonel, I don't have time to repeat myself, so please listen well. Get everyone away from the southwest corridor of the city, and I mean everyone. Something terrible is coming, and there are only a few of us who may be able to handle it. All Might, I don't appreciate being given orders by non-military, or being kept in the dark when it comes to battle intel, Colonel Yami answered stubbornly. The citizens have already been evacuated to it. This is not a debate! All Might shouted, causing those around him to flinch from the mere force of his words. The ground beneath them actually shifted as he added, Something must have happened at the hospital, because Tomura Shigaraki is coming! Sir? One of the privates who was monitoring the battle zone via satellite feed started to say. Not now, Private! The Colonel Yami snapped, even as the ground beneath them continued to vibrate, sending literal waves of unease throughout the bodies of everyone present. Sir, there's some kind of seismic activity coming from the hospital, the private insisted. All Might stiffened in place for a half second before turning to all those who were assembled with the words, Run! All of you get out of here as fast as you can, with as many people as you can! Don't stop for anything or anyone! Run! It was just as well that he'd begun to yell. After all, the sounds of the city suddenly collapsing into dust behind him may well have drowned out even his impressive voice if it were not elevated.
I've been waiting for the right time, running up and running, leave a behind. I don't wanna leave my chances out in the cold, 'cause I feel the weight of the world. I see it, I reach it, to the summit that I never known. I need it, I reach it, every step takes me farther from home. I see it to the end. I see it to the end.
Okay.
Huh? I told you guys, like this, like stuff's got moving. Now it's gonna keep moving.
Yeah. Seriously.
Like, there were two narrative points that I left out in this chapter, and I did this on purpose. I left out Team Juniper and I left out Kaminari and Tokoyami, largely because there was, like, obviously there's so much stuff happening in this chapter from the viewpoints that I did cover,
Yeah.
that the scenes that I was originally going to include in this chapter, I put them in the next one. Because I'm just like, if I include all of them with the way that this chapter is moving, it's just going to be too much. Yeah. This chapter is going to get too long, and it's not going to be palatable. So we get the girls kind of cleaning up with the Nomu lab. Aries kind of talking to Eraserhead, like she's kind of like, "Are you proud of me, Dad?" kind of thing going on. And then we get Shigaraki's clone. So this is actually one of the reasons that I had Shigaraki clone in the first place. Because I had planned out for a while that Garaki was going to be taken down first by, Shirakumo and then by Eri. Because, she's got a bone to pick and she's more than fast enough to take care of him. And I was like, I need someone to activate the stasis pod, right? Get that ball rolling. And then I kind of realized, I was like, wait, it would make sense to have a Shigaraki clone running around because it's like, even if he's not as durable as the original, he has the same memories and everything, so he could run things the way that he wants them run while the real Shigaraki is being built up, right? So I was kind of like, why didn't they do that in the original one? Because we've seen twice use a Shigaraki clone. This was during his battle against the Meta Liberation Army.
I wonder if it just takes a lot of energy.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. We've seen twice conjure thousands of clones.
Yeah.
With no visible drain on his stamina. But I don't know. It just seemed honestly, it seemed kind of like a missed opportunity to me.
All right.
Maybe I'm wrong on that. But it just made for the narrative to go this way. I wanted this to happen, and it seemed very well within the realm of possibility from the original show. Even does that make sense?
No, yeah, it makes sense. For sure.
Yeah. So we get Cronoa and Mirko. They have a pretty close call with Decay.
My gosh, scared me to death. I was like,
Did you think I was gonna kill Mirko there?
I did, and then for a split second, I thought she was gonna just go all badass and cut off her own leg.
It was happening too quick for that to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah. I honestly was tempted to kill Mirko with that, but it just didn't feel right.
No, you don't want to just...
I can't put words... This is one of those times where it's like, I can't even put words into why... exactly why I made the decision that I made, but it just did not feel right to have her die there.
Also, I feel like it's kind of meh to bring in your own... because, she is a character in the show, but at this point, she's your own OC. Because she's future Eri. And I'm like, I think bringing in your own OC and then killing off another protagonist, it works kind of, but I don't really like it because it's here, new strong girl power. Oh wait, we're just replacing her. Kill one, have a new one. And
okay,
I don't like
maybe that's why I did it.
No, I think and it makes sense. She's with someone who can rewind stuff. It makes sense because that's why Eri's power is one of the
that's
best.
why they sent her at the Nomu, because they know she can undo the whole Nomu process.
And she's honestly one of the better choices to go after Shigaraki because of that. Because
if she can catch him off guard, the idea is that she should be able to rewind him to a point before his quirk even awoke. Clearly that didn't happen here, but it was a good plan considering everything they had to work with. Let's see. So moving on. They kind of have this bonding moment for a second where Mirko's like, all right. She's like, I'll break the tank, but you get to kill him. It's like, all right, cool. And then we get one for you can see one for all getting excited. The collective consciousness of the vestiges, they're finally we've got. It's because they failed in the future. They saw what happened when they failed. And now it's their chance to fix everything to finally end this feud. And they go for it. And it didn't go right. Let's see. So following that, we got Kai still kind of being a little bit swagger, little arrogant here, which is not normally like him. But again, he's got All Might at his back.
He's giddy.
Where he's like, this ain't nothing. This ain't nothing. This is gonna be literally a walk in the park. They're being ambushed in the park. This is nothing but a walk for these two. He's just like, this is hilarious. And just
nothing like
I love getting to give All Might the I am here moments. I'm bordering on redundancy with these, but I don't care because he would be so excited. He would be saying that at every opportunity he had.
And there's nothing like walking out on the team with your childhood hero who's literally the best there is.
Fair enough.
That gives you a major confidence boost, and you call it arrogance, but it's nah, we got this. We're fine.
Yeah. All Might was a hero that Kurai respected, wasn't the hero for
Yeah,
him,
but he was,
but
like,
yeah,
the
like he's been his
world's
teacher.
hero.
They've gotten closer. Like he's definitely excited to have him there. But yeah, I was like I had a thought about like kind of describing some of the stuff that they did, like taking out the villains, but then eventually, but like it just seemed too stilted, and eventually I was just like, you know what, short and sweet with this. It's like I don't need to describe anything. People can use their imaginations. They just wasted all these guys so fast they didn't even understand what was happening, and like it's almost funny that way, where it's just like that. This is literally 1,400 villains against two people. Again, they tried to ambush one kid. Now there's two people, and it's like, all right, I take the 700 on the left, you take the 700 on the right. Screw that, I'll take 701. Yeah, there we go.
Ay.
Oh man. Then we get a shift over to Lady Nagant, who so it's like we have it officially confirmed. It's like, yeah, she's there to protect Kurai, which now makes more sense because we know that
we know who Umbra is. Now we know.
Now we know why he set her free. And now to make it clear, she doesn't know who Umbra is. She doesn't know his identity. She just knows that
she was hired to protect.
She was hired to protect somebody, which is new for her. Like, and she says as much. She's like, this is more interesting keeping someone alive who's in my line of sight than dropping them, and like she's kind of enjoying it.
Well, yeah, I mean that's such a challenge.
Yeah.
Like,
well, not even on that, because like when she was a kid, she wanted to protect society.
Well, yeah.
And like over time, she like for a while there, she thought, okay, these people need to go away, so I guess this is my way of protecting society. But she never really got the chance to like actively save someone, I think.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a big deal for her. Sorry, you were gonna say something.
No, you're good.
No, okay. Alrighty. So now we've got Umbra saying, all right, this is the part where you need to go and join up with the other heroes, so that way they don't suspect you of anything when the next part kicks off. And just a fun little Easter egg. So Umbra calls it Phase 7 for his next part of the plan. And that's a little bit of an Easter egg in regards to the fact that this is the 7th part of Your Hero Academia. Like originally I had some other number. I don't remember what it was, but I just kind of like, I realized that this was kind of an opportunity for just an innocuous little Easter egg. That like, if you see it, cool. If you don't lose anything for it.
Yeah.
If you're listening to the podcast, then now you know, but if you're like, I feel like it's one of those things where like, if you're just reading it, you probably won't catch it. But it was like it's one of those things where it's like, this is for me, and if other people catch on to it, cool. Let's see. Then we have Shadow being an absolute savage.
Yes.
He's just taunting. Like he's not even using his psychic abilities to mess with Dabi. He's just trolling him.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
big time.
He knows
he doesn't have to use his powers here, and he knows it. He can just mess with him.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, he just screwed up his entire masterful plan. Sorry, buddy. And it's hilarious because not only did he beat him to the punch of dropping the ball, he turned it
into an advantage for the heroes.
He got it to the point where Dobby's literally, I'm sure he's wondering, he's like, I was literally about to tell everyone and now I don't want them believing him.
Yep.
It was hilarious. I was like, wait, oh.
Yeah. There is something to be said for controversial news being like the source, or maybe not even the source, but who says what first. Like who gets the story in first. Yes, the source material, like if there's a falsehood claimed, eventually like it usually comes around, people are like, the person who talked first, that's the one that, like, that's the clickbait. That's what most people are going to go and see. So Mataris essentially clickbaited everybody.
Yeah.
And like,
I was laughing.
And just like Hawks sitting on the sidelines being like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? He's like,
gosh.
what? He's like, what in the world? Who thought this was okay?
Who is this?
Yeah. It's like he knows he works for the commission, so he's like
I know he knows who he is. You know what I'm saying. Like,
but yeah.
Who is this kid?
Yeah.
Like, who do you think you are, basically? Or like, how can...
It's like, who enabled this? Who thought this was a good idea?
Exactly.
Like, Hawks is just watching, like, potentially the full extent of his brainwashing capabilities. And like that's the interesting thing about Shadow is that he is fully capable of brainwashing, like just straight up changing someone's personality entirely. But it's far more effective for him to just use what's already there.
Yeah.
And like just give it a little nudge. Because honestly, like sometimes that's all it takes with people. Like you can have someone who like by all appearances is fully normal and like having a good life, but you don't know what's going on under the surface. And depending on the buttons that you push, you can send them one way or another. Like he can take that to a whole new level, which is what he did with Toga and Compress. Like Toga in particular. Like for a minute there, like I was kind of like figuring out. I was like, okay, who's most likely? Because I had I was like, okay, I've got all these lieutenants here. You know, Redestra's there. The Ice Guy's there. We got Spinner, we got Compress, we got Toga, right? They're like the top brass, and I was like trying to figure. I'm like, okay, who would be most likely to fall for this? And I decided not to go with Spinner because both Spinner and Dobby joined because they shared in the idealism of Stain to a degree. Yeah. Like Dobby less so, but that was one of the common factors between Spinner and Dobby. Yeah. So I was like, Spinner might be able to suss this out. Like if it's just a passing suggestion from Shadow, you know, he may be able to be like stop and think about like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. But like, you know, Toga, she's very easy. Her emotions are wild. She's very easily manipulated through them. Like even without psychic abilities, she would be very easy to manipulate.
Oh yeah.
Like it would not be difficult. And then Compress, who I decided to go with Compress because he kind of has a thing for lineages as well. Because his great great grandfather or something was like one of the first quirked individuals. And like he was the thief, like he was basically thought of himself as Robin Hood. He stole from the rich, gave to the poor kind of thing. So I felt like playing on that for him was a better use of the psychology. Because to him it's like, to him it's like, not blood ties aren't everything, but they matter. Yeah. So like it's easier to convince him like, oh, this is Endeavor's son. It's like that, like for him that counts for something, especially since he didn't tell them about it. Like in the original, you know, he's surprised. He's like, wow, I had no idea. It's like, that's pretty crazy. But put under this light, where they're like, for all they know, Dobby's the one who just killed twice, and Shadow and Hawks have physical evidence of the fact. Yep. Because he torched twice his body in the process of trying to kill them. So now it's like it won't even matter that the head was severed. The body's just ash at this point. So it's like all the physical evidence that Shadow was the one who did it is just gone. So like he even invites them. He's like, "Hey, go check it out." He's like, "Go check it out." He burned him up. I couldn't have done that. Yeah. And then they just kind of like, and then they're like, everybody starts fighting Dobby, and Shadow's just up there going like, "Dance puppets dance."
Yeah, that was.
And like that, and like that's where Hawks is just that's the point where Hawks is like, "What is wrong with this guy?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun scene to write for me. Like oh man.
Because that's such like a gut punch moment in the OC. And
in the original. You said OC instead of OG.
Original canon.
OC usually means original character.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Actual canon. That's this moment is such a gut punch. And so I think I like this because we already had a big gut punch. We don't need
we can still have the gut punch. It just needs to come from a different direction.
Yeah, and I don't know. This gives you a little bit of
vindication, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just loved the idea of like screwing up Dobby's plan so bad that he's just like, how did this happen? Like he's so confused.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Yeah, and then, you know, Shadow's kind of like, all right, my quirk's kind of... He's like, all right, I'm kind of coming up on my limit. We need to go. Then we shift to the kids again. You know, they're like ripping through these villains because like they're trying to head toward Kurai. they're panicking. It's like, have they captured him? Like, did they kill him already? Like, what? Like, they don't know what's going on. Like, they don't understand why he took off when he specifically, like, not 10 minutes ago was like, I'm going to stay with you guys. I need you to watch my back. And then, boom, he's gone.
Yeah.
It's just like, what is that? And, he comes back, he's able to explain himself. He's like, look, I didn't mean to do that. They hypnotized, like, they manipulated me. They hypnotized me kind of thing. The back and forth between him and Mina, I thought was funny. Where she's like, I don't know whether to punch you or kiss you right now, and he's just like, punch these guys, kiss me later. Yeah, like how do I put it? Like, I like having the banter go between them.
Yeah.
Like banter for me is very fun. It doesn't like there are very few situations in writing where I'm like, no, I don't want to do banter. And they're more or less like they're actively trying to repress what they're doing. Essentially, like they know that they're killing people, but they don't want to deal with that right now. So they're using pretty much any means that they have at the moment to kind of avoid thinking about it. Let's see. Then we get All Might, getting to do his All Might thing. Like he's just so happy, like getting to save people.
Yes.
Like he definitely killed some of those villains, but like he's not just out, laying waste to the villains like a lot of the other heroes are doing right now. He is like actively getting to protect people, which is what like he wanted to be this pillar of support. He wanted to be the reason that everyone could smile happily, and he's getting to do that again. So like just I have more fun writing those All Might scenes than I thought I was gonna have originally. Like it's just so fun. Like it's such lightheartedness in the middle of a lot of crappy stuff that's happening. And like if like I don't always like feel good and happy when I'm writing like good stuff that's happening. Like and like I don't mean to say that like I begrudgingly write happy stuff. It's just sometimes I don't like I'm not into it as much as I want to be sometimes, but I try to make it work anyway. This is like one of those times where it's like, this is cool. I'm happy about it. I hope that I want it to come across in my writing like how happy this makes me.
Nice.
Let's see. Then we get late into Gaunt meeting the kid heroes, and they're all kind of like, "Why are you not in prison?" And yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting dynamic in that she's telling them the truth.
Yeah.
Where she's like, I'm here. She's like, I'm here because I'm interested in him. She's like, not only is he more or less the reason that I got out, which is true to a certain degree. But she's like, she's interested in him because he's not interested in sugarcoating things.
Yeah.
He's like, no, heroes have to do terrible things sometimes in order to keep the peace. Like, he's like, clearly he doesn't enjoy it. And like to her, like it's such a breath of fresh air that it's like this guy is doing good. Like he's doing he's doing what he can to make our world better. But he's also very honest about the way that he's doing it. He's not trying to hide the ugly parts that have to happen. So for her, that's such a breath of fresh air that she's genuinely curious to see where his path will take him. And to have that genuine feeling be treated with such suspicion is like, it doesn't bother her because she kind of expected it, but it's interesting to write the narration that way. Because like my natural inclination is to be like, okay, yeah, she's telling the truth, so I want to write it so that that they see that it's the truth. But in all honesty, they wouldn't be able to see that just yet. Like they need more proof, which is why we get Bakugo basically sticking a grenade on her, just in case she tries something funny. And yeah, it was a fun conversation. Sorry. It's not even all that late while we're recording this. I don't know what's going on here. I even had a nap earlier. What is this? And then we got a scene that I had been looking forward to for like a while. Like there were a lot of scenes that I enjoyed writing in this,
But this was kind of one of those scenes where it's like, I've been planning this for a while, and I was so excited to get to it. And that is Akururi delivering the Heroes Public Safety Commission Board their comeuppance.
See, last chapter...
How did you, how did you feel about this whole thing?
I think I was emotionally dead at this point.
Mm.
So initially I was like, oh, of course he's gone all full-blown evil. Great. Wow, what is this when Akurui is acting more like Mataris than Mataris? Like...
Mataris isn't Machiavellian, though. Because that's what Akurui is. Like, yes, he's emotionally invested, but he's also incredibly pragmatic about it. Mataris is very reactionary.
Okay. But he plans things.
Oh yeah, he does plan things, but a lot of his motivation, like his emotions don't drive his actions, but they are a source of motivation for him. Akururi is different in the sense that his emotions generally don't dictate what he's doing.
Yeah, but he definitely...
Oh yeah, this was just him straight up...
He should have.
Oh yeah, this is just him straight up being a child.
At this point, it's like, there's no going back. He's just owning it. And I hate that for him.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he's spitting some truths here.
It's true, but that doesn't mean you should go
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
People.
Again, I'm not agreeing with what he did, but it's like you can see why he's doing it.
No, yeah.
There was a part where he's like, you all committed crimes so great that All for One would applaud you, which is interesting because All Might was the first one who said that about Umbra. And something to remember is that All Might was Akururi's favorite hero.
Yes.
So like him repeating what All Might said in this context is supposed to lend a little bit of extra kick.
Yeah.
Because he saw how much All Might despised Umbra. Mm-hmm. So like this is kind of a way of showing like this is the level of vitriol he feels towards these people. He is absolutely disgusted by them.
Yeah.
To me it was like I thought this was kind of crazy to do, but I also realized this is probably what he's going to do at this point, is that he sources Stain as one of their mistakes, but also being one of the people who was right. And you got to remember, he's out and about. Ingenium's out and about, and he's fine now. But Stain crippled Ingenium.
Yeah.
Who was like an older brother or uncle to Akururi as much as Kurai.
Yeah.
So like, for him, so like that was kind of a way of me trying to show, it's like yes, he's emotional about this, but emotions don't entirely factor into what he's doing. Because if emotions drove him, there's no way he's quoting Stain as having the right of it by any stretch of the imagination. But because he's been looking at this objectively, he's like, it sucks that our society has come to the point where someone like Stain is the only one talking truth about this.
Yeah. Relatable.
Yeah. But I enjoyed writing the part where he's like telling them all who he is and like why he's doing this. And the president's like, so what, are you like giving us one last chance to redeem ourselves? And he's just straight up like, oh no, I'm going to kill you.
Oh gosh.
He's like, you're actually going to die a lot quicker than you deserve, but I don't got time for you guys. They're like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, I just wanted you all to know that you got outmaneuvered by an actual child. It's like this is like the most savage that I could make him.
And yep.
And like,
now
but it doesn't.
He's gone full blown villain.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, he went full blown villain when he killed that one guy in his family.
Yeah.
Like just straight.
I thought that was Umbra, not him.
Same difference. If Umbra didn't do it, he would have done.
Okay.
Umbra is not capable of doing anything that Akururi wouldn't do.
No. Never mind.
Physically speaking, Umbra was the one that set that all up. But like, if Umbra does it, then Akururi could also do so.
Well, he's capable of it.
He's capable of doing it. Yeah. And then so
Yeah, so that trigger gas that Shadow recovered, guess where that went? I'm like, the irony of that the Hero Safety Commission sent Shadow to go retrieve that. And he was already annoyed at them because they lost it.
Yeah.
And he's like, great, I captured that. You idiots lost it. Now I gotta go find it again. So there is like there is some form of like, this comes back around full circle.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like they thought the Shadow was going to be bringing it back to them. He did technically bring it back to them, just not in the way they thought it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then we get Shigaraki's. We get the one for all users all feeling Shigaraki's awakening.
And that's just like, oh shoot.
It's like, yeah, like Kurt Eye's feeling it the most. Because, he's got danger sense and he's the one who's holding one for all at the moment. So he's feeling it. Deku and All Might is like, they have echoes of it left, but they can still tell something's about to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like just that last scene with All Might is like it made me sad to like cut the happy part like in half essentially. Because like I could have written another another scene where it's like, well, where like maybe they noticed something was happening. He's like, all right, don't worry about it. I'm going to go take care of it. But I decided to go with the more jarring note of like, this is bad. You all All Might needed to be afraid to show everybody else like, this is bad. It's like take him seriously when he says run away. And then we get the city like turning into dust. So we get the giant decay wave that first kicked off like the whole battle at Jakku City during season 6. Which that was a whole crazy arc. That was like the last couple seasons have just been crazy.
Insanity. But yeah, I mean that's where it is. That's
yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So.
Like I don't know, did you like what did you did you have anything in particular that you were kind of like, why didn't we cover this, or like should something have happened that didn't, or was covered, like wasn't covered?
No, I mean, it's hard to go 2 chapters feeling so hopeless. Like, you get some hope at some points in this chapter, but it just it ends on kind of a bummer and like a panic. So I think for me it's a little bit of a oof. But and of course I've read on, so I know what happens next. But back at the time when I was first reading it, I was like, I'm depressed now.
Oh no. Well, yeah. So the fight against Tomura Shigaraki will begin in the next chapter, but there's a lot of other stuff going on too.
Yeah. That's not the only thing going on. So.
Yeah. Find out what happened to Eri. So Tokoyami and Kaminari and Team Juniper, they'll be in the next chapter because you don't want to go, like, even if they weren't covered in this chapter, you don't want to go too long with not covering the pertinent parts of the story, because they're still active parts of what's happening. They just weren't immediately prevalent to the things that this chapter was centered around. So, all right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this chapter and the the background and thank you guys for leaving your reviews when you do. Definitely motivates me. Definitely helps me as a writer.
Yeah, it's really cool to see.
Yeah. So we'll get back to you guys soon. We're gonna do the Pokemon Warpath chapter here in a couple weeks. So I hope you all have a plus ultra time until the next time. That's super redundant. I'm sorry. I'm leaving now.
Have a good one.